Twitter is not a platform. It is a psychic weapons system. Whoever owns Twitter controls the Western zeitgeist, and Elon understood this when he bought it. It's priceless, which you've been hearing on this pod for the last however long. Like any price to earnings ratio or like some shit out of an intelligent investor book is like, there is no way to calculate the price of the most influential communication system to have ever existed. You're not selling chocolate here. It's not even about I'm going to say it's not even about money. It's not even about I don't even think that's the way to analyze it. It's like on the trajectory of things that you're trying to bring into existence, what is the one thing that if you had influence over, you could accelerate the adoption of all of those things? It's a way to reach millions, hundreds of millions of people in seconds. It's an insane.
Welcome to another episode of No Investment Advice. We got Trung Phan, Jack Butcher, Bilal Zaidi here. Jack, where the hell are you, mate? You look like you got shipped off somewhere. What's going on?
I'm in my clear light Sanctuary C full spectrum infrared sauna, courtesy of healwithheat.com.
There we go.
Thank you, Skylar. Friend of the pod.
Healwithheat.com. Mm-hmm. People, we joke on here probably every other episode how we've made $0. We are actually now officially saying the only remuneration we've ever gotten on this podcast is a friend of the pod, a longtime listener turned out, hit us up. He's like, hey, do you guys are you familiar with bartering? Are you familiar with the bartering system? This is before capitalism. People would exchange goods with each other. Good. Would you like a sauna? So, Jack, can you tell us about what you're sitting in? How much have you liked it? And again, shill that website.
Is that Mac about to melt on us or what?
Boys. It would be if I had it on. But look, I'm just sitting under the custom light conditions here.
Jesus Christ.
For the listeners, it looks
incredible.
like a sex dungeon with the way he's changing the lights.
That's what it looked like. It did look like that earlier. It did look. Well, the thing is, what we say is we don't get paid on it. We only get paid through free saunas and free chairs, because Trung also got a chair sent to him.
Oh yeah, let me. I'll show my boy.
Someone
my
needs
boy
to send
Nate.
me a chair. I'm using a dining chair right now. What's going on?
Well, let me just shout out quickly. Is my boy Nate, friend of the pod, friend of mine actually for decades. He works for Herman Miller. You guys know Herman Miller, right? They are the Birkin bag of office chairs.
Oh, yeah.
They are the Rolls Royce of office chairs. So he sent me this gaming chair. I don't even got the name. He's going to
I just can't believe Jack's in the sauna right now. This is so funny.
So this is the full shill segment. Jack, so please continue the healwithheat.com. Tell us about that.
Well, this is technically a 3-person sauna we got here. So, one.
You can double up for a dungeon too. There you go.
Very nice. And let me just give you a little National Institute of Health rundown on the benefits of infrared saunas. Health benefits include detoxification, increased metabolism, weight loss, increased blood circulation, pain reduction, anti-aging, skin rejuvenation, improved cardiovascular function.
The Finns really know all about this.
Stress management and relaxation. Yeah, let me give you a little outside view.
All right. Jack's doing the full setup here. Look, that is pretty beautiful, to be fair.
Dude, you put it inside, eh?
Yeah, it's inside.
Is this in the back home? The back one where you usually record, right?
No. This is in the house.
Oh, this is in the main crib.
Like you boys
the main crib.
Well, dude, I mean, like what? Like because Jack has so many guests. Jack's like, wait, I'm not gonna give the guests the sauna. Like, are you crazy? I got guests over and I got to ask them for permission.
It also
to use
doubles
the sauna.
up. I bet you can record a good pod in there because it's quite soundproof. It sounds like from when you were in there.
Actually, so I will tell you guys. But Bilal, you brought up the Finnish thing. I saw the numbers recently. I posted on X. I think the population of Finland is 6 million people. They have 3.5 million saunas.
What?
They have
That's mad.
one sauna for every 2 people, and a lot of the public saunas shut down because everybody just has them in their house. And I think I told this story before, but I won't tell it again because it's one of my favorite stories. I went to Helsinki like 6 years ago, and I rolled up into one of the few like public saunas that was left that I found on TripAdvisor. And I rolled in with my buddy, and 6 dudes in there. I mean, they're not dudes. They're like all over the age of 60.
They're wearing they're wearing Speedos or what? What's the situation?
No, I mean, they're naked as shit, man.
They're just letting it loose.
They don't care. They're like 65-year-old
Russian
guys. Yeah, probably been doing 3 hours of sauna a day for 5 decades. Sees this Asian dude. Here's the thing though, Asian cats go hard in saunas. Like if you go to Asia, the sauna game there goes hard. A dude will like Vietnamese Chinese dudes will bring like 2 liters of like green tea and just sit in the sauna and like smash it. Yeah. And but anyways, I roll in and this guy's like, we're gonna smoke these 2 kids out. They looked at us like, these guys think they can handle the Helsinki public stuff.
They're not
so
ready.
These guys smoke us out. Start piling it on the stones. I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. And then you go to the change room. The last thing I'll add is, it's real because in the men's change room, dudes are like lying down on like massage tables and other dudes are slapping them with like leaves. Like, I don't know what was going on there, but it looked rejuvenative. I don't know what the National Institute of Health has to say about slapping another guy with. I'm yelling again. I'm gonna get yelled at on YouTube for yelling.
It's all right. I got excited. You're doing well.
All right, Bilal, can you tee up what we're talking about? That was the
full. We went full. I mean, we've never done that before. That was the first for the pod. Jack is back in his nice setup. He's got his microphone going. We're all in the same place. Let's let people know what we're going to talk about. We didn't get to it last week, so we're going to kick off with next big thing for 2024. I think we were discussing some of the things for the year ahead, things that came up in AMA as well last time around alcohol, AI, obviously, GLP-1s, e-com, etc., etc. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll get into some of our normal topics for the week. We're going to be talking about Stanley, the brand, the cups everyone's seen, super viral, very interesting case study there. We'll probably touch on Carta, what's been going on there. And then if we get to it as well, Trung has a Bill Ackman breakdown. You've probably seen Bill Ackman.
We definitely got to get into that, man, because that is like, well, you want to know why? You know what? I actually
why don't you tease it?
Stanley, then Ackman. I'll tell you why.
Go on.
Sorry, cough there. You remember Jack's winner of 2023? He goes, I think the winner is X. And I go, oh man, Jack, cool choice. I think X peaked in 2021. And Jack goes, nah, I don't think it's done yet. I think it's got another peak ahead of it. And then Bill Ackman v. Harvard, which we will discuss. We teased it last week because Claudine Gay resigned, the president of Harvard, while we were recording. But that all happened on X. This Carta story was the biggest tech story over the weekend. For people who don't know, Carta is it's a cap table management. So every startup basically uses it to manage their employees, their investors, and letting everyone know how many shares they have, because obviously private companies aren't listed on public exchanges with public filings. So this is like the equivalent for private markets. But that all played out on X. Stanley actually played out on TikTok, which is a bit annoying. But we'll do the meme of the week here.
Yeah, go. Let's pull that up, Trunk. Go on.
Yeah, I'll tease the meme of the week. I actually got 2 for you guys. They're based on both of our stories.
I will say there's some behind the scenes here. If you're going to do the Bill Ackman one, yeah?
Yeah, so the first one is, for people that don't know, Bill Ackman, hedge fund, $4 billion net worth hedge fund manager. And
very active on the internet.
Since X released the long tweet feature, Bill Ackman has been the biggest utilizer of it. So here's the tweet. I'll tee this up. Let me get rid of it. So over the past week, for people that don't know, the president of Harvard, Claudine Gay, resigned. She had given a testimony about Harvard and anti-Semitism. Her and 2 other presidents, one of Penn, the other one at MIT. It was, by all accounts, a pretty flaccid testimony. They're kind of pushed into a corner a bit because it was done by a conservative congresswoman, and the whole point was just trying to make an example of higher education and kind of win some culture points. But you guys all saw the video, right? I think 100 million people saw it. They just asked point blank, hey, is calling for the genocide of Jewish people considered hate speech? Every single president gave a very lawyerly answer, which they're probably coached by lawyers to say, because the codes of the university actually have a free speech type of code. They're private institutions, so they don't have to do the First Amendment in the United States, but a lot of them do. A lot of colleges hew to the First Amendment just to kind of keep that standard. But basically, the whole point is they're saying, no, we have free speech here. You're allowed to say a lot of things unless it goes into harassment or something physical. But the whole point is that anybody here that's been following higher education in America, what's been going on the last 5 years, people? You say one thing, you tweet one thing, you get you can't go to school, you get expelled for any type of hate speech against selected groups, right? Whatever you feel about it, they had a double standard. So anyways, Bill Ackman went after her. She got booted for plagiarism. 3 days after Claudine Gay resigns from these plagiarism charges, Business Insider, which is like Hit Piece Central, did a hit piece about Neri Oxman.
Really the TMZ of the business world, I guess.
Did a TMZ of the business world. I love that description.
Yeah.
And they did a piece about Neri Oxman. She is the wife of Bill Ackman. Now, to be fair, she got caught on plagiarism charges. She apologized for them. I think the difference I'd add between her and Claudine Gay is the following. She is no longer an academic, doesn't excuse her past behavior. She apologized for it. But Claudine Gay was the president of Harvard. The president. In the year 2023, there were 100 cases of student misconduct at Harvard. 60% of them involved plagiarism. Half of those students were expelled or suspended for the entire year. If you're the president of Harvard, there's an extremely high standard, right? Like you can't. Neri Oxman, former tenured faculty at MIT, now is an entrepreneur. But I give this long tee up. Sorry, I know we're supposed to talk about Stanley, but just for this tweet, here's a meme of the week. So Ackman's written probably 30,000 words defending his wife. And the running joke is that Ackman is going to war against elite academia. He's threatening to start an AI startup to find plagiarism at every single Ivy League school just to prove, just basically in defense of his wife, right? That's a running joke. So the tweet I have here is, I texted my wife. She texted me, did you do the dishes? I say, not yet. We'll do it later this afternoon. And then she goes, Ackman is laying waste to Ivy Leagues and elite academia for his wife. You could put 4 bowls in a dishwasher. I respond, fair enough. The funny thing is this happens literally every single day. I got to ask you guys, do you guys have this dishwasher problem with your wife? What is the beef and tensions that happen with your significant other around dishwashers?
Yeah, that's always a problem. That's always
it is, right?
I think someone needs to invent a better thing around when it's clean versus dirty. Do you have this issue too?
Well, you have the magnet. People put the magnet.
We don't have a
outside.
magnet. We need to do the magnet, but we have that's a simple solution that we have not explored. But anyway, I understand what you're saying. I do think
the tensions though. Tell me about the tensions that happen from the dishwasher.
No, I think it's more of it's beyond the dishwasher. It's about fairness in the household, and it's about who does what. That is what the argument's always about, obviously. So I think just to put it out there, I do a lot less in the household, so that's why I'm always happy to do the dishwasher because I don't actually mind doing it. But anyway,
so hence the Ackman joke, right? Ackman's laying waste to elite academia. You could do some, but so I'll actually like your thoughts on it. We can go more into that because there's more to tease out about that. But what were your kind of high level thoughts about what you've seen around the Ackman stuff?
Oh, I to be honest, because I'm in London, I have not been reading lots of news, lots of stuff on X, so I have not been fully following it apart from what you shared, and so I haven't been following it super closely. And
all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the jokes. The jokes are pretty funny. I will say, every time he posts, I rarely read it because it's too long. It's literally the definition of TLDR. Every time I need a TL, it's like too long, didn't read every single time. That massive block of text just puts me off on Twitter for some reason. And
10,000 characters. I mean, this guy.
I can't be doing that.
I think he's the only one that's hit the limit. Like his last one, he did his long screen about Business Insider. He had 2 back-to-backs, full length text. But anyways, let's talk about Stanley. Jack had to.
Well, let's actually, before we do that, let's start with the next big thing for 2024 stuff because I think that's probably we should have really done it last week as well. So
okay,
maybe we'll kick off with that.
Talk about the ones that you like the most.
Trung, you had shared. I can't remember who did the write up because I can't see the link in the notes anymore. But do you remember who did that write up?
Yeah, I'll find it. Why don't you start talking and then I'll find you the name.
Yeah. So the question, I think people asked some questions like this in the AMA as well, but we didn't get to it. So the kind of question is, what are the big kind of things we should all be looking out for in 2024? I think the obvious ones, AI. Obviously, we can go into a few of those examples if needed. But the ones that stood out for me, I thought are worth talking about. Less alcohol. I remember, Jack, do you remember that came up last week? And we wanted to talk about that with Gen Z. People still smoking all sorts of stuff instead. That was another thing. India, I thought was interesting because we did a whole pod on that. And then what else was there? Going back to the office, another big trend that I think we've been discussing a bit on the pod. Obviously, Zoom asking people to go back in the office was the last straw. We knew it was a day when that happened. Anything? I mean, there was GLP-1s, Ozempic, etc.
Well, let's discuss a couple. What we talked through. So shout out first of all to Nikhil.
That was Nikhil.
He's a VC. I think Footworks is the name of his venture firm. I also buried the lead on that Ackman meme. Bill Ackman retweeted that. That was a running joke.
Yeah. Well, you were teasing it up for us to say it was bait, right? Like you knew it was going to happen too. You knew you could.
I actually didn't know
follow the footsteps there.
He's slowly digging into the meme side, like the more the Elon, like playing with the internet culture, because he's a bit more buttoned up, right? He's Harvard MBA, like Wall Street guy. But I've been noticing he's not obviously no dummy. He's getting it. He understands the speed of internet. And he's getting, because I see he's retweeting and engaging more with like meme accounts. He gets what's happening and how you can wield. I mean, to Jack's point, Jack had to run off again, but you understand the speed of the internet, right? And how you pack it. What's funny is that he's doing the opposite of packaging things. His things are going viral even without them being packaged tightly. Like his 10,000 character essays are going viral. But let's talk about the next big things, these themes. Bilal, why don't you tee off the one that you're most interested in, and we should discuss about it. Why don't you pick one of the ones you just mentioned?
I think let's wrote a GLP-1s, Ozempic. I think it's interesting because it's not huge. It's obviously hyped, but it's not pure AI tech stuff, right? And I think a lot of people, it's kind of under the radar for a lot of people who aren't really following that world. Well, what's the latest you read on this? Because I think it's what percentage of people? I think it's a single-digit percentage of the US population already.
Okay? So shout out to Olivia, Jack's sister-in-law. She wrote an article for the Free Press about this ages, I think 18 months ago. That's right, Jack. Jack was actually brought this up. Jack was saying, we talked about this, I think, a year ago this time. So just to give people an idea, Novo Nordisk, which produces Wegovy, which is, so for people who don't know, GLP-1s is this. Let's just bring it up again because people have forgotten at this point. It was created, this class of drug was created to treat diabetes, okay? And what they found as an off-label usage was that it was actually suppressing people's appetites and actually stimulating certain hormones and chemical reactions where you just ate less. You felt more full. And what people have found, if you people want, Google this. Google Jonah Hill. It's very clear that he is on Ozempic / Wegovy or one of these GLP-1 drugs. The dude's lost like 150 pounds. So it reduces your appetite, makes you feel more full. You're eating less. I think the number was people are losing 30-40% of their weight on average. And this is a huge difference. We could talk about self-control and obesity in America because I think Bilal just mentioned there's a single-digit number already using it. Obesity crisis is very real in America. I think by 2030, The Economist floated a number that 50% of America will be obese or overweight, which is just insane when you think about it. The cost to the healthcare system. The healthcare system is 1/6 of the U.S. economy. It's like $3 to $4 trillion a year. If you can create a drug that can treat obesity, you're actually saving a lot of funds from the government, but you're also going to make a shit ton of money. Go look at how much money Viagra's made, okay? Go look at how much money the cholesterol drugs have made. We're talking $100 billion revenue drugs. So let me throw it to you guys. Well, let me throw it to Jack actually, because he's had to take care of some stuff with the little one. Jack, where are you mentally with GLP-1s? You used to count broccoli, but you understand why people want to use this. Where are you with it as an impactor for 2024 and beyond?
I don't know. I think what's the most remarkable thing to me is how fast it seems to take effect, and maybe that's just like the media perception of it. Because wasn't one of the other early examples of this? Didn't Elon say he was using it? Like two pictures of him from.
Yeah. Well, he's mentioned it before.
He said it was great. Yeah, he said like in the space between two pictures taken of him, he lost a lot of weight, and that I think that was the thing that was most, I don't know, profound about it to me, is like that it's doing that just through appetite reduction. Like, I don't know, the thing that's difficult for me to understand about it is I actually at times have just like the composition of the food I've been eating is wrong. You know, like you're not getting your macros in balance, and eating less didn't necessarily, obviously you lose weight, but not in the at least in my experience, I lost weight not in the way I would want to lose weight, just by eating less. So yeah, I mean,
as in you want to preserve muscle and lose fat, you mean, yeah? Generally speaking.
yeah, you don't just want to just skeleton yourself.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Like your strength over the long term is another thing to consider. But if you're in a position where there are other problems being surfaced just as a response to being like massively overweight, then this seems like an incredible solution for that, right? And I guess the long term question is how, like, what's the trade off? Because any substance has a trade off. Yeah, even food you eat has trade offs, right? This just everything has that, and I think this has that at least early perception of being like magical in the sense that the trade-off isn't as significant as one would expect based on the quality and speed of transformation, right?
Yeah. I think, Jack, you brought up a really good point there, which is kind of the trade-off that they're already kind of seeing. And so the two that I've seen a lot, and we might have talked about on the pod, so I won't go too long on it, but is the muscle versus fat question, which is a lot of people are losing muscle, not necessarily fat. And I have a theory on why that might be. And then the second big thing is when they come off it, they're going to put it back on. So it basically is the same problem that happens for people who lose a significant amount of weight in general. The only difference I say is if people did it in a traditional way, you know, you work out more, you eat less, you build kind of habits that might last until after, right? And that's kind of the problem here. A lot of people they're finding is as soon as they go off, they're like basically going back to their old habits, and their appetite comes back, and it's just gonna bounce back.
Balloon, like yo-yo.
So like it's like normal weight loss. 90% of people who lose a significant amount of weight will put it back on, and so there is actually opportunity for people to basically create like an off ramp. And I think a lot of that is education and support. Basically, it's like people don't actually know. They're just going in. The doctor's like, here's some drugs. They see it works, and then they're like, wait a minute. I've gone back into my normal life, and you haven't changed the actual behavior that's gonna create issues for you. And then the other big one, and this is Peter Attia, we talked about him on the pod a few times. He's got a pod on this. The Drive is his pod, and he's talked about it a few times. In his patients, he's seen that because they actually do DEXA scans where you can see muscle and fat composition, and a lot of the people who have used it within his practice, a majority of what they're losing is muscle, which is really problematic because long term, like putting on back that muscle is really difficult. Like just as context for people, if you lose 1 to 2 pounds of fat a week, that is very doable. Especially if you're really big, you can go up to that amount. To put on 1 pound of muscle a month is really good for most people. Most people can't do that.
So that's why you hear like athletes, they'll be like, oh, we put on 10 pounds of muscle over the summer. Like we're talking guys
that's
crazy, their entire life.
And they're normally juiced up because that's like, or they're just elite athletes who have like.
Wait, what, Bilal? That's interesting. I never heard that angle, but it makes a lot of sense, right? Because obviously typically people that go on these drugs will have more fat. So what was his theory? It's just standard weight loss, right? Like if you stopped eating,
it's the same as basically to me what is happening from without me being a doctor, but someone who's lost a lot of weight and has done it in the traditional way and has read a lot about it, is that when people will lose lots of weight, let's say like me, 40, 50 pounds, right? Like it's normal to lose some muscle, but the ratio that I found is about right is if you lose 2/3 fat, 1/3 muscle, that seems to be about right. Whereas other people, what Peter Attia said, he's seeing the opposite. It's 2/3 muscle, 1/3 fat. And so that means for every 10 pounds you're losing, 6, 7 of that is muscle. That is like pretty bad, right?
That's not good. That's really bad, actually. You know,
I just got this memory from a couple years ago where like I think this is specific to men, but the rate at which you can put muscle on is obviously like inverse to your age. Yeah. Like when you hit 35,
it becomes much harder.
The ability to build muscle is like, it's like step functions of, unless you've been training for years and years and years and years and years. So it's like those yeah, just being able to maintain your muscle mass as the long-term goal for like longevity and all of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like weight is not a perfect way to extrapolate.
Yeah, it's a
health, and
blunt
never has been,
measurement,
right?
It's a blunt measurement for health. Obviously, it's directional. But yeah, I think Trung, just to wrap it up, I think if people basically follow, like if you follow like bodybuilder style people who do cuts, the way you maintain is you have to make sure you eat enough protein to maintain that amount. A good target is 1 pound per target body weight, which is way more than most people have, right? Like 150 grams a day is quite a lot. Like
it's like 4 chicken breasts.
It's like 4 eggs is 20. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's like plenty. And then the other thing is you have to use the muscle, so you have to like do the resistance training. So I think I have a feeling if people were doing that alongside using these drugs, it probably would work similar to a normal cut.
I think this brings up,
help people.
We're talking, let's everything you've laid out as context, let's add the longer term trend. What is the biggest criticism of this? So I wrote about this in my newsletter, and I got a bunch of responses from European people. They're just like, this is pathetic. Americans need to take a drug to get rid of their obesity. I mean, that's a little bit harsh because there is in this.
Isn't the company? Does it come from Europe? Isn't it Danish or something?
The Danish. That's the point. Well, what I forgot to mention about Novo Nordisk is that it's the largest company in Europe now. So it's bigger than Louis Vuitton.
Well, that was the kind of headline is. For all of this 2024 stuff, a lot of people, including like Scott Galloway, we've talked about it before, that GLP-1s will be bigger than AI. That's kind of the hot take.
As a theme, right? And well, in revenue.
Well, even in revenue
sure, right?
and impact, I guess.
Well, if you take away... Go ahead, Jack.
I was just going to say this another form of status game, isn't it? Arguably more important than the designer accessory is the body. You know, the Navalism... of what is it? A fit mind? No. A calm mind, a fit body, and a house full of love. These things have to be earned. They can't be bought. And now you're kind of in a...
That's perfectly
put in
a
situation where
Jorgo.
you can.
Shout out to our boy Jorgo.
Yeah.
Jorgo.
No, that's true though. That's a great way to put it. Great way to sum that up. Well, anyway, I guess go on, Trung, go on.
No, I was just going to add longer term because I wanted to put a bone, and Jack kind of hinted at it, is... I mean, people think this is a miracle drug because apparently it's showing to help with alcoholism and other impulse control issues. But it goes back to everything Jack just said. If you have to take a pill instead of and self-control, self-discipline, I mean, it is difficult, right? And some people are genetically just predisposed to having weight. That's the truth. And it's not just a morality question. I mean, that's what it raises really, because there's decades, periods, right? When somebody's overweight or unfit, you'd be like, you make a moral judgment about them, right? And some people it's just.
Well, back in the day, you were the boss. You were King Henry VIII.
Yeah, right. Things change, right? If you're fat, you were the boss, like literally. Like,
you could eat. You were eating good.
That means you were literally eating. Now, if you're fit, it's because you have money to have a personal trainer. You have money to have a dietitian. You can afford Whole Foods. I think this trend will be huge. And I think what we'll see is you'll see the full effect of the positive / blowback, which is everything Jack mentioned. It's like, it's a Homer Simpson quote, right? Beer, when he had, beer is the cause and solution of every problem. That was a running joke from The Simpsons. But now this is going to be like pharma and like big agra is the cause and solution for everything. Oh, great. We figured out how to put corn into everything so you eat McDonald's and get super fat. Now just take this pill. And all of it goes in American capitalism, right? Yeah. That's a great way to put it. So that's the big... Well,
Trung, I think we can cover one last one on it because we talked about it before, was the alcohol one, because it's kind of related to what you said. Well, it's kind of the other side of this.
This has been going for a couple of years, right?
Yeah. I mean, I remember when you were writing on trends for the hustle, you guys covered that, like the alcohol,
but I think it's worth discussing because Jack brought it up. So I love you guys to tee it up. Is like just the high level.
Well, I'm curious to get your guys' take as well from your friend groups and people you know. Obviously, it's January. A lot of people do dry Jan or whatever. But I've noticed even just being in London and in New York in the last few years, how many people, basically everyone's been trying to drink less, right? Like that's been the thing for a long time. But genuinely, like how many people went completely off alcohol? I think Jack, you had done that for a while. When we first met, actually, you had cut it for a while, and honestly, I don't know if you guys listened to that Huberman episode on alcohol, but that was a massive impact. I'm pretty sure.
So
that had
for
a
the
big
listeners, let me tee up Bilal. Actually, Bilal. So my buddy Stu, he listens to this podcast every now and then. He's like, Trung, you have to listen to this podcast. And I'm like, oh, whatever, fine. It's one podcast, right? He did a series on all the major like popular drugs. I listened to it. So people that haven't listened, it's like 90 minutes. He literally just talks about alcohol, literally just from a scientific angle. And here's the conclusion. 0 benefits. Like, you have 2 alcoholic drinks a week, it's just bad for you. He's like, it's literally
no
poison.
Physical benefits. I will say
no physical benefit. Yeah, there's no physical benefits.
Maybe for the soul or for socializing
for the soul, right.
some of those other ankles.
He doesn't say don't do it. He's like, I'm just telling you the science behind it. He's like, there's no physical benefits. In fact, it's all like negative. And that's all he says. He's like, I'm not telling you to or not drink. I'm talking physiologically here to blah. So I listened to that too, and I actually I'm like, okay, I gotta take a break.
Yeah.
Was that your reaction?
The same. And I think even just objectively outside of like anecdotes from speaking to friends and stuff like that, like if you literally I looked on the keyword research, like the search trends show it, the numbers show it for even like Heineken, a lot of those guys are reporting their fastest growing SKUs, non-alcoholic brands, which obviously fastest growing, you're starting from a smaller base, but still I'm pretty sure the rest of them are kind of stagnant. And so it's just like an interesting area. Like even I was at a bar in London a few days ago and they had like a whole mocktail menu, not just like, oh, here's orange juice. This is like all these new spirits and all these different things that have been created in the last like year or two. So I think it's definitely a trend here to stay.
Well, let's get Jack's thoughts because he teed it up last week. Jack, what was your thoughts on the non-alcoholic stuff?
Yeah, I think it's more of our generation drinking less than it is. Well, people who grew up with it or like did it more often in their younger life versus maybe it's the same thing, but younger people just like never getting into it in the first place. That's what it feels like to me, is there's like a bit of a generational divide, and it's probably way more prevalent in certain parts of the world than others too, right? Like places like New York and London that are like, oh, we come and we got a full mocktail menu on the thing. It's another like status thing where you can go and partake in it without feeling like you have to ask for a glass of water and feel like you're not a part of what's going on. I've tried it for extended periods of time, and I like much prefer having a moderate relationship with it than
a 2 to 3
completely
drink
off it,
buzz is just. I mean,
not investment advice.
Not health advice, but
you guys
for the soul advice, like we said.
Let me for the soul, man. Like when I saw Bilal in London, and like this was the Bilal joke, which I didn't think of. I rolled up like 4 drinks. Like I sat with Bilal and his lady for a couple hours. But within the first 15 minutes, I like put back 3 wines, and it's just like Bilal goes, "That's dad mode right there."
Yeah. That's the dad. Well, I always think of my friend who listens to the show. Every time I meet him, it's like at like 4 p.m. or it's like at the end of his workday before he has to go relieve the babysitter. You know what I mean? So he sneaks in. I remember
meeting him once, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you bet. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly. What do we used to call him?
For not being judgmental. Thanks for not judging me, Melina.
What was it called? Something like $10 bit, because he only had $10 left.
This is the Bitcoin guy, right?
Yeah, it's the guy. My boy, one of my best friends. I forgot. Did we call him $10 Bitcoin? He basically only had $10 left in his account because he was putting everything into Bitcoin. It was obviously a joke, but not really.
No.
Well, actually, let me finish one thought here. Let's talk a little bit tech, guys. Think about this. There's a couple of reasons why alcohol is on the downswing. People care more about health, the Instagramification of culture, but also just the recording of everything of culture. Listen, I'm sure all of you, well, I know Bilal started drinking and partying a little bit later. I know Jack was hitting it hard after the car factory. If I had a 10, there's video footage of 5% of the stuff I did in my teens while drinking, I would be canceled a million ways to Sunday. I think that's a huge part of this, to be honest. Because
that's a good point.
You just can't be a dumbass anymore and not have... Dude, If they had videotape of the stuff I was doing from 13 on, between 13 and 25, between 13 and 25, when I was blacking out twice a week, like this is, I mean, I was an idiot.
Yeah.
I am not proud of this.
Yeah.
Good Lord, people. And you know, I had a problem. I had a problem with alcohol. That's true. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I was a problem drinker in the sense of, I wasn't good with alcohol. You know, you meet some people and they're like 4 drinks in and they're just shitty people. Like they're fucking loud and they're doing sketchy stuff. Like I was one of those people. And I think that's a big part of it. I think everything is being captured is in a good way, man. I think that's a positive, to be honest. It also goes with the part of like people are afraid to say anything. So that's kind of a negative. But I think that's all playing into where Jack mentioned this younger generation. They're a little bit afraid. Shout out to our boy David Senra, who just did an episode about Red Bull founder Dietrich Maastricht. Said the name wrong.
Yeah.
But he mentioned in that podcast, everyone listened to it, that that guy's super private. One of the greatest marketers ever was this very super private guy. And one of his mantras was never drink in public. So like, it's like only drink behind closed doors.
I want to see what you did behind closed doors. There you go.
It sounds like some stuff was going behind them closed doors.
He's going crazy.
It was not being filmed.
Yeah,
but I think that was part of it.
But how much do you think of it is also to do with the alternatives that people go to? Because the way I see it is for smartphone, but also drugs that have become more legal. Yeah. Or like SSRIs, even experimentation, psychedelics. Adderall. You're right. There's actually, maybe this isn't a good thing. Is it better for society? Because this is the joke, right? It's like if 80s was cocaine, that was the big thing in the 80s. And the flower era.
Now it's more fentanyl heroin. And people actually talk about this. Fentanyl heroin, I mean, this is going to sound pretty sick, but people talk about you're a little bit more productive when you're a coke versus fentanyl. I've never done fentanyl, but I'm just saying it's like the public perception, right? What is fentanyl? It's a downer. What is coke? It's an upper, right? It's like what is marijuana, cannabis versus caffeine, right? It's an upper versus a downer. Oh, people actually talk about this a lot. It's like you look at cultures and what their drug of choice is. People, not personal experience, don't cancel me. I'm just saying, have I dabbled? I've dabbled in things. I'm not going to say what. I live in Canada too, so a lot of it's legal. So don't try to cancel me. But I'm just saying, certain drugs have certain effects. I want you to think about those things. At the end of the day, people are going to find ways to affect themselves, right?
And that's what I think it comes down to, Trung. Like you said, it's like since the beginning of time, people have wanted ways to get out of reality. That's kind of the punchline for me. Whether that is waking up or enhancing reality is another way. So you caffeine to speed up the day and you get this extra boost, or you got your red wine at night people have and they take it easy. You got the Red Bull there right for us, or they've got a little edible nowadays, or they're smoking something with their friends. It's social, spread love. It's the Brooklyn way. Biggie Smalls
spread
vibes.
Love is the Brooklyn way.
Exactly. So there's all sorts of stuff. There's a social element. I do think the psychedelic part is actually interesting because I don't think the whole world's going to be just doing psychedelics, but that's a huge growth area, both in terms of research and legalization or decriminalization, maybe I should say, as well. So again, I'm not saying people are going to be not drinking a pint in the pub and they're going and doing mushrooms instead. But I've personally noticed how many different people have just said, oh, I'm not drinking, but I'm doing this instead. And they've found another vice. So it is interesting. Yeah.
Let me give you a trend actually related to the sauna that Jack threw up. Healwithheat.com. I'll tell you why this is interesting. I don't know if you guys have noticed. There's always gym trends, right? There is the Equinox. Actually, Jack, were you ever part of the Knox? Were you ever part of the Knox Law? Jack feels like a Knox guy.
Equinox,
I know
yeah.
I
knew it.
Days.
I knew this guy, Mr. Soho House, was doing the Knox. I knew it. All right.
My corporate rate.
Yeah, you gotta get a corporate rate.
Exactly right.
You know, actually, I had WeWork. I used Equinox as a co-working space. Basically, it's
that's
like
hilarious.
I think it was like $200 a month, but WeWork
catching some eyes.
Floating desk was $500 a month or something.
Catching some eyes.
Jack, did you ever do Chelsea Piers?
A pure economic decision. Thank you.
There we go. Chelsea
I used to go Chelsea Piers when I first moved to New York. Yeah.
Trung, there's a place, Chelsea. I actually think it's a better place because that place, Jamie Foxx, I saw him in there in the sauna, little 3-on-3 action.
So hard to get to it.
Wait, you saw Jay Fox in the sauna?
Played basketball one time with him because it's just
Yo,
it was a lot
son.
more space. It was a little bit cheaper, but it was expensive. But the Google rate was like cheaper than Equinox, and even better, they had a sand volleyball court in the middle of Manhattan. It's stupid.
Mental,
Didn't
man.
make any sense. But
And
anyway,
a little deck on the back on the Hudson,
Deck and-
little
yeah.
sunbathing. Very good.
swimming pool and climbing wall. Really,
Yo,
really
dude.
beautiful.
Let me
Sorry,
throw
back
some
to
action. No. You guys brought up everything that matters. There's always these trends, right? Soul Cycle. You guys remember that? There's all these trends for fitness. Here's one that I'll throw out there. It started in Toronto. I forgot what it was called. But it's basically a sauna nightclub. So you still want to socialize. You still want to meet. You still want to pipe. You still want to pipe.
You still
right?
want to pipe.
So what do? You want to be healthy and you want to pipe and you want to be social. So you go to these nightclubs, which are just massive sauna rooms. We talk about the Finland sauna, but like super upscale.
Oh, that's
And then
funny.
like you make that the night. So your Friday night is literally going to a massive sauna. Everyone feels good. Because
That's crazy. I've seen gyms where they've done like they turn it into a party at night with
so
stuff
that's
like that.
turning
And
into
I've seen,
a thing.
Have you seen the Daybreak? This is very 10 years ago. Day rave, or like early in the morning. It was Daybreaker, I think it was called, where you would go 7 a.m., 6 a.m., no alcohol, but it was a straight rave in the morning.
Caffeine?
It was like, I guess people can take caffeine, have caffeine, but it was like specifically no alcohol, but proper music, like a massive party, and then people would go to work at like 9
Well,
p.m.
let's add this to the trends. You know, in real life, right? You mentioned back to work. In real life, it's coming back. People, stuff like this always matters. We threw those two also. GLPs, alcohol,
less alcohol
in real life. We're doing the non-techie stuff. AI's. I mean, I'll just list off what Nikhil wrote for AI. He said, AI will start showing return on investment. AI, you'll see more AI infrastructure, like the underpinnings. AI enabled application, AI in the real AI healthcare,
AI content.
AI. Actually, here's one: AI causing trouble. That's interesting. I'll put some quickly.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
2024 will
Election
have
years.
more elections than any other year, I think, in history. So obviously, America has a big one coming. But so we'll throw it out there. I think we should move on to the Stanley thing, which is also related.
Yeah, perfect. Good little move. Yeah, but anyway, good little chat there. Let us know what you think. What's going to be big in 2024? What is the cold plunge of 2024? Because I think that was the last 5 years. Little Wim Hof action.
Well, here we go.
So
Here's
Stanley, I had this saved as well. Meme of the week,
too. So
second
our boy,
meme
2
of the
weeks
week.
ago, our boy Ramp, friend of the pod, he does that
This was
classic.
perfect.
I mean, Jack,
superb.
I know you like this format. I'm going to tee it up. Can you please read it out? Jack's about to read this meme format. It's a photo of Leonardo DiCaprio from Wolf of Wall Street as Jordan Belfort, the penny stock shiller. He's calling a mark right now. A mark. He's identified a mark. Maybe a doctor with means. And he's going to sell him some shit coin. So, Jack, can you read what Ramp just wrote?
The name of the company, Stanley. It is a cutting-edge, high-tech firm out of the Midwest awaiting imminent patent approval on the next generation of travel tumblers that have both huge military and civilian applications.
Military is incredible in that.
Wait,
Beautiful.
Jack, can you walk through, sir, why? Well, Jack, you actually wanted us to talk about the tumbler sitch. So can you tell us about your relationship to Stanley so far?
Well, it's a big Celia is a customer. You see him everywhere around here. It's a big, huge uptake in the mother community. This thing apparently has a bunch of different qualities that make it different than anything that's been on the market before, flask wise, right? And I heard this story a year or two ago that they made this for They made this for hunters or something. Like Stanley is this utilitarian.
It's 110
I sent you boys that meme.
Old. Yeah. Here.
Yeah. My dad has this, has the green tin version of the Stanley thing. It's you put soup in it. Yeah. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, for context, it's 110-year-old brand. And the one thing I'll add before you finish your thought is here's the other picture you guys can think of. You guys know those famous photos of the Empire State Building getting built and the dude sitting, the builder sitting on the the metal thing, eating lunch. That was with their tin pails. It's exactly what Jack said. It's like thermoses, right? That was what the brand is. So Jack, continue with the mother segment.
Well, I wanted to get Celia to come on and explain this, but she's not. She's doing something else at the moment. But
What was the NFT
story-
tweet? It was kind of related.
Well,
Remember
I'll
that?
tell you the story before this is like
go on.
they made this product and their audience is just like dudes in the forest or on a building site, right? That's who they were making stuff for. And these guys probably buy one flask and it just dent it up to shit and have it for like 20 years. So I think it's a $70 million company because of that. They make products that you're not supposed to replace. And this is what Celia told me. I'm going to get some of these details wrong, but they made this flask thing with a straw, which is a complete opposite of what you want if you're going like chucking it in the back of a truck or like, you know, it has to
Because the
just
straw
be
is going
sealed.
to touch the dirt, right? You don't want to leak it.
And it just doesn't seal. And it doesn't seal. It's like you can't tip it over, whatever. It's like a cup to drink out of. So apparently somebody, like there's this really niche application for it. It fits in a car. It's like easy to carry around. You can fit loads of liquid in it. This is another big like health trend is like drink 1,000 ounces of water a day or whatever people are doing now. So this is like one of the reasons it was popular. And there was this apparently influencer that I might be getting this detail wrong, but like they discontinued it to begin with. They're like, oh, it's not selling to our core audience. And from what I remember about what Celia told me, this one person was like trying to place private orders with Stanley. Like, please let us sell it for you because we know people that want it, blah, 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 blah. And then obviously, I don't know, through whatever chain of events,
I know
it
the
caught
name
fire
of it.
and it became this huge. Okay, go
I'll
on.
add the name. No, I'll add the name for you to continue. I wish Celia was telling this story because we need the female touch here.
I'm not doing it. Yeah, I'm not doing it justice.
No. You are
well.
you are doing it justice. I'm just saying it'd be amazing if Celia was telling it right now. No, but here, Jack, the name is The Buy Guide. The Buy Guide is a mother publication or kind of influencer account. They are the team that Jack mentioned that was reaching out to Stanley being like, yo, this thing that you have with this straw, this 40-ounce tumbler with the straw, will blow up amongst moms. Because you know who spends a lot of time on Instagram and Facebook marketplaces? Moms. I can tell you right now, my wife hits that Facebook marketplace real tough. So Jack, please continue. They reach out to them.
Yeah. They reach out to them, and this is where my understanding of the details gets fuzzy, but they place an order privately, then they start catching fire.
5,000 quenchers.
There you go. And then I'm assuming that Stanley takes that as a signal that they're just doing their marketing wrong. And they're like, obviously somebody wants these things. And I got sort of reintroduced to it, or when it blew back up on the timeline was probably about 6 months ago now or something. You guys see that there was this car that caught on fire. It was like completely burned out car. And this woman's taking a TikTok video of a burned out car. And the Stanley Cup is in the center console and there's still ice in it. She shakes it and there's still liquid and ice in this thing. And the car is burned out completely.
That's incredible.
And then the CMO, I think, bought her a new car. Or somebody at Stanley replaced the car because of the free press that they got the Stanley Cup. And then that just ignited this thing like absolute wildfire. And now the tweet that Bilal is referring to is like, Stanley Cups are NFTs for women, which is, you know, a hilarious comparison. They're becoming these collectibles and people are like buying 15 different colors of them to go with whatever. It's like the cap.
Of the day.
You got to match the shoes with the cap, and then they've got charms hanging off them and snack trays attached to them and all this shit now.
Snack
like there's
trays.
literally markets. Honestly, boys, there's markets that have been created from this thing. Like
that's
the
incredible.
things
It's the app store of the Tumblr world. There we go. The extensions. The extensions are endless. Do you know what I mean? Wow, that's incredible. It reminds me of there's a few brands where they've just been around for a long time and then they just kind of stumble into this new lease of life. I think Crocs is where the CMO came from, right?
Well, let's talk about it. So his name is Terrence Riley.
Yeah.
He was the former CMO, as Bilal noted, of Crocs. What happened with Crocs between 2013 and 2020, which is when he worked there?
They went ham.
Crocs teamed up with Bad Bunny, Justin Bieber, and Post Malone. Do you guys remember? This is the story. This was the inciting incident for Crocs. There's a photo of Post Malone wearing Crocs. Terrence Riley reached out to Post Malone's team. Can we do a collab? Genius move. And Crocs became this joke just like Stanley, just like Jack had mentioned, how Stanley survived this fire, Crocs are a very utilitarian thing. They're made of a foam that fights odors, right? Like the actual rubber foam itself. And yeah, there you go. The Post Malone Crocs. Look at $500.
$500.
Killing it.
So this guy goes over to Stanley. This guy's 55 years old now. So this guy is not this like, young buck like figuring it out TikTok, but he's like, I've seen this before. He's like, he smelt it. And he goes in. I'm not going to give this guy all the credit. I mean, he works with the Stanley team. Stanley team clearly incentivized him and empowered him. But to your point, Jack, he caught the influencer bug, and now there's over 2 billion hashtags of Stanley Tumbler or Quencher on TikTok.
Incredible.
And so the question then becomes, and this is where I relate to you, I'll ask Bilal first. Bilal, you've been in this game. You know the digital marketing game. These things come and go. What is the lasting effect? Because water trends actually come and go a lot. There's been a lot of bottles, like Nalgene. You guys remember that shit?
Whole 2010s, there were like so many.
So, I mean, like, I'm going to put it to you. What do you predict is going to happen to Stanley? Because their revenue went from 70 million in 2019 to 750 in 2020. That's
wild,
10x in 4 years, people. So, Bilal, what are your thoughts?
You know
that's shitcoin level. What prediction?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think it just depends on the execution from here. I mean, they can keep riding the wave that it becomes a staple and it just stays. It doesn't feel as trend-based as, say, like fashion items. Do you get what I mean? Like when you're wearing shoes, there's a little bit of a shorter, like something unique like a Croc. Though I haven't looked at Crocs numbers recently, but I know they had that massive surge and then a lot of the time it falls off because it's quite a specific look. Right, it's like Birkenstocks we talk about on the pod as well. I feel like Birkenstocks has a little bit more staying power in a way because they're just a little bit closer to a normal look versus Crocs is just so different. And the Stanley side, again, I don't even use any of these, so I don't know enough, but I feel like they can just become the staple in that segment for a little bit longer, but who the hell knows? The other brand I was thinking of, Carhartt, because Carhartt, you know Carhartt originally.
That's a great one. It's a great one.
Yeah. And so Crocs, Carhartt, they worked in my pod at Google. That was like branded apparel durables we were called. So that whole team, I didn't work on Crocs, but I remember them it was 2013. So it was that whole run. They were doing crazy stuff on YouTube and stuff. Yeah, here's Stanley Cup search trends. And I remember Carhartt has a similarity because they started off as like workman wear. Like they're I went and met them in Detroit and they basically said our core customer is like people working like Jack back in the day in the factories. They're like, handyman, like they've got the overalls on. And now at the time it was like, I guess 2015 or something like that. There's been this massive surge in like hype beast style, trendy people wearing Carhartt. And they kind of had to like lean into it. I think, yeah, go on.
There was this great Instagram post I saw recently that says, I wear Carhartt because I'm working on myself.
Yeah,
like on the back of
yeah, that's so good. Exactly. And in fact, actually, my girl's dad, who's a real handyman, like he like literally built like a shed, like a full basically mini house in the background, like in their backyard. He was wearing Carhartt and I was talking to him about it. He's like, yeah, I like it because it feels like I'm back in the working days. Like, and that was his perception of it. And then my French hipster friend is like wearing Carhartt like hats and Carhartt whatever. And it was this kind of interesting thing where you had to toe the line of both parts of the brand. And they actually are opposites to each other in some ways, because originally some of the younger people that might have started wearing that are like, oh, that's kind of a cool ethos brand. And then it just becomes straight, taken over by hype beast style culture. So anyway, the only reason I'm mentioning that is I think Crocs, Carhartt is similar in that way to Stanley, but Stanley isn't a fashion statement in the same way. It's not like here's a shoe.
Wrong.
Well, wrong. I guess it's fashion statement in its own way. Like you've got like all the accessories for it, but it's not the same as wearing a random shoe that looks really specific. You know what I mean? But maybe I'm misunderstanding because I haven't messed around with Stanley too much. What about you, Jack? Jack, what do you reckon, or Trung?
I think it's my guess is no. Go ahead, Jack. Jack, go.
I was just going to reference. You guys remember when Vetements did that DHL shirt? It's like high end, low, like
High and low,
maybe.
yeah.
Like it's a super high fashion runway brand that's like co-opted, like working class brand or culture and like turned it on its head. And it's like this paradoxical thing.
It's like Saint Laurent working with Greg's in the UK or something. Just like get your sausage roll on the catwalk.
Mate, it would fly.
That would work.
That would go
That would
nuts.
work well.
Like I think those are like the shocking things, and people like the ability to cut through the noise is so difficult that the shock factor of like even doing that internally, and like Stanley's not a great example of this, obviously, because it's like those aren't millions of miles apart, but like the barbell strategy within the brand of like one end of the customer segment is this, and the other end is like completely opposite to that. It's like completely accretive, and like this 100 years of brand and law and reputation just gets instantly transferred into this other world, because the Stanley Cup being as popular as it is because it's like technically incredible too, right? Keeps the shit iced in a car fire. Like it's not like they just got the
it's
not like they just did a cool silhouette of a shape of this thing. It's like, no, it's 100 years of tech in this cup, and it's like it is good, but it also happens to like fit in the the Range Rover center console. Like the bottom of it is just big enough to fit in a car. And I don't even know if that maybe they designed it that way originally, but maybe that's like the killer unlock that made it this like massive utility thing where, 90% or maybe, more than 90% of the competitors' products would not be able to do that. So it's like you instantly have the market share for everybody that wants to take 40 ounces of water in the car, which is a lot of people now. Mental. It's a mental thing to like look back and be like, it's 10x the value
it's
of
not software. It's not some
unbelievable
app. It's not AI. It's literally a physical thing that carries water. It's amazing.
It's very inspiring for the atomic builders out there. There's still alpha out here.
Well, if there's a larger lesson here, Bilal asked what do we think. So Bilal gave his answer on kind of like the hypey nature of these things, right? I love that you came out with Carhartt. I'm working on myself. We talked about a couple episodes ago. Birkenstock went public, right? Birkenstock is a 250-year-old brand. Similar thing. Here's a common theme that I'd say between Birkenstock and Stanley. Everything Jack just mentioned about the build of it. Birkenstock's actually really, like from a craft standpoint, very well done product, right? So I'll tell you who's actually been talking about this for years is Gary Vee. Gary Vee's like, I'm gonna buy an old brand from the 70s that has all this IP and nostalgia, and I'm just gonna re-whip it up. I think the difference with him is like he was talking about like bubble gum, which is like whatever. I mean, sure.
Did he Mr. Peanuts or something, whatever that is?
Yeah, like Mr. Peanuts. But like the thing with Stanley and the thing with the Carhartt too. I mean, Bilal, but Carhartt's actually good for that trade, like, right? Like the fabric is quality. The
the quality of the clothes are great.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like you still need those things. So yeah, I'd say if Stanley can, from a product perspective, it actually is the best, and they've layered on this viral thing. It's not going to 10x again in 4 years, but like, did it hit this baseline?
Yeah, it might have staying power.
Yeah. Is it a $500 million a year company now instead of a 70? And I think it might be for a long time. But
and obviously their like customer base has just gone like they have way more shots on goal to do whatever shit.
Not only did they double effectively their customer base, but they doubled it into the correct customer base. As everyone knows, Bilal, what's the stat?
2/3 of purchases, or something like that. I forgot the amount, but it's a massive.
I think in a household, the mom
85%. It's like something crazy.
Yeah. So they tapped into the real control. Man, you think the
need
guys bringing home bacon are the dudes? No. Everybody knows those purse strings are controlled by the wife and the mother.
We need more toads, right, Bilal? Same thing.
Exactly. Otherwise, you leave it to us. We'll be doing stupid stuff like that. Exactly. All right. Well, we're gonna have to wrap up soon. Let's just
Let's do the Carta story
briefly
really
about
quick.
Carta. Yeah, why don't you break that down? What's going on? I know that's a big story in tech in the last week.
So that was a really big story and it resolved quickly. Just kind of like, I mean, this goes back to Jack's whole point. Well, we don't even have to talk about the Ackman thing at this point because I think I rambled on enough. But Jack's prediction, or what he said at the end of the year episode, is like, I think X is still going to do its thing. Dude, it's unreal, man. It just, the mainstream media, every article, X is dead. Twitter is dead. Elon killed X. Fidelity marks it down 50%. It just, sure, whatever. But what does it mean? Jack, what was a tweet you sent me and Bilal? X is Elon bought the psychic weapon for Western
psychological
England.
weapon system. And by the way, how does Fidelity mark it down 50%? What's that based on?
It's
private.
internal.
The numbers are private, right?
No, but they'd probably do it against. They had to do it on their books. So they have to announce it because I think they have some public investors and private funds, but they use public comps basically. They're like, hey, what's Snap's multiple right now? What's being reported? But the whole point is this: Jack sent us this tweet when news was going out last week or 2 weeks ago that Fidelity had marked down Twitter, which whatever, man. Elon knows he overpaid, but at the time he also sold a bunch of Tesla stock, which was up huge, right? So all things equal, Elon dumped a lot of Tesla stock, which was at a very high point to pay because he had to exercise his options, and then he bought Twitter, which he knows is overvalued, and he obviously tried to get out of the deal. But Jack, can you just read what you sent us?
Twitter is not a platform. It is a psychic weapons system. Whoever owns Twitter controls the Western zeitgeist, and Elon understood this when he bought it. It's priceless.
I mean, everything we're seeing,
you've been hearing on this pod for the last however long.
Jack!
There's no,
Jack.
there is that, any, price to earnings ratio or some shit out of an intelligent investor book is there is no way to calculate the price of the most influential communication system to have ever existed. Right?
And Jack's bullish.
You're not selling
Sounds
chocolate
like
here.
Jack's bullish here.
You're not selling chocolate.
Not selling
it's not
Kinder
even about.
Eggs.
I'm gonna say it's not even about money. It's not even about I don't even think that's the way to analyze it. It's what is this on the trajectory of things that you're trying to bring into existence? What is the one thing that if you had influence over, you could accelerate the adoption of all of those things? It's a way to reach millions, hundreds of millions of people in seconds. It's an insane.
And not only that, they're addicted to your device. They come back. We talked about this shitty business. Twitter, when he bought it as an advertising business, never made money. Bilal knows this. Bilal has talked ad nauseum about the Twitter product and why a lot of his customers for his digital advertising is Twitter experimental, first thing to be cut. But anyways, I bring this all up because we just watched again another thing pop off on X and get resolved in 72 hours. Remember OpenAI, that was a 5-day thing. That happened all on X, right? The entire thing happened on X, and Sam Altman was brought back to OpenAI because 700 of his employees put up heart emojis on X. Here's what happened over the weekend. The founder of Linear, a startup, I can't remember what Linear does. I think it's an analytics firm. But anyways, he wrote a tweet about Carta. And he had said Carta, which manages cap table for startups. So as I mentioned, imagine me, Jack, and Bilal ever got our act together and made NIA a proper company. We'd issue ourselves shares, we get investors, and then we let obviously a lot of listeners invest into us, not investment advice. And we would manage it all. Instead of Excel spreadsheet, we would have it all on Carta. So what happened is Carta has all this information about private companies. For years, they've talked about a product. They launched one. It's called Carta X. What do they do with that? What do you do with all this information about private companies? You try to match buyers with sellers, right? Because private markets are extremely fragmented on both sides. No one, I'll tell you from my experience, and I'd like your guys' thoughts on this. I worked for a startup that got acquired. The entire time I was working at this startup, this is the conversation every single day with my closest friends at startup. Man, I hope we get acquired. Every day is looking at our shares. I hope somebody steps in and maybe just wants to buy our shares. Literally, that's it. This happens all the time in startups. It's like, here's this lottery ticket and we just want somebody to take it off our hands or take a couple shares off our hands, right? Like if I have 10,000 shares of this private company, I'll sell 2,000 of them. Can we find a way to do this? It's been very difficult to do. NASDAQ has something called NASDAQ Private Market. I did a secondary share sale on NASDAQ Private Market. It's not super intuitive. It's hard to put together. Carta was creating one of these solutions. And here's a TLDR, is it turns out they were taking this information and contacting people at the company and being like, hey, I have a buyer for your shares without letting the CEO know. That's a big no-no. So can you guys opine on that? Like, from what I just told you, is that a good thing or a bad move? Like, just your thoughts. I got to plug in my computer.
I mean, I don't, if it's not explicitly mentioned that by signing up for the software that you're agreeing to that, then it's not great, is it?
Yeah, seems like a no-no.
Like the assumption, it's been positioned as like a private, like any enterprise software that is not by default private is probably an issue. But something like that is like cannibalizing your own customer, or like, yeah, I mean, everybody would, even the way in which that data is captured and transmitted between parties to sign up for this stuff implies that it's incredibly confidential, right? It's like the contracting software and document signing and all this stuff, that all the implication along that journey is that you're doing this in private. So yeah, it's bad.
I love that was your reaction. Bilal, what was,
yeah,
your
not
reaction,
much more to add.
What was your reaction, Bilal?
Based on what Jack said? From what you said there, because I wasn't following it fully, the story before that, it seems it feels like if you're going behind people's backs, that's the problem. The only thing I'll say is it's probably buried in some, long legal thing that you accepted when you signed up. But like, I can't believe we're kind of in a world where that is still a thing where everyone just says, oh, it's in the terms and conditions, but literally no one ever reads terms and conditions because they're stupid and long. They're like Bill Ackman tweets. Like no one's reading the whole thing. No offense to Bill Ackman. No, he has some logic in his at least. But no, the terms and conditions are always just like, what the hell? Like, oh, it's buried there. Like, okay, legally I was supposed to look, but no, I think I've met like one lawyer who reads terms and conditions, and they're really fun at a party. But apart from them, there's no one else in the world who ever reads those things.
Yeah, I feel like Trung, like philosophically, this is like making an efficient market for this stuff is great, but doing it under the guise of providing a service that does something else is not great. Which is why on this podcast we talk about public ledgers and the issuance of tokens that represent certain things.
How did you shoehorn? I feel like it makes a lot of sense, to be fair.
No, it is.
There we go.
Efficient market.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. You're right.
All of this is like obfuscation.
Yeah.
We need to employ 15 lawyers between this person and that person to ensure that X
That's a good
happens.
Point. Yeah. Needs a smart contract there, mate.
This is what I want to say. Jack nailed it. Jack's reaction was literally the entire reaction of tech Twitter, right? This is why this played over. So I'll read you the exact tweet. It's from Kerry Saranin. So this is CEO of Linear. He goes, this might be the end of Carta as a trusted platform for startups. As a founder, it feels kind of shitty that Carta, who I trusted to manage our cap table, is now doing cold outreach to our angel investors about selling Linear shares to their buyers. Because obviously, you're the CEO of a company. You want to know who your shareholder base is, right? Like a private company.
I bet you they raised money on that premise. Carta.
100%. It's an $8 billion, because if you become the NASDAQ for private markets, which is what they pitch themselves at, that's to Jack's point, what is that worth, right? I love how the wheel, Jack's like, I get why they did what they did, but dumb. Because I don't even know. I don't even know if I think that there's so many conflicting interests there too, where, as a CEO that's issued stock, like where that exists on the secondary market is somewhat your concern, but also not, right? It's like if somebody wants to pay more for this fractional ownership
ownership of this thing you're building, you've already given up control of that. Like as somebody that's issuing, like if you really think philosophically about what someone is doing by issuing stock.
No, but you want your employees aligned though. That's the whole point. If your employees are all selling off their shares to secondaries, they're no longer
they're not aligned in the first place. Yeah, they're not. They're the wrong employees then, right?
Right.
Like that's the philosophical discussion. Is like if somebody can take this off your hands, and if there's a buyer for it, then that implies that there's value being created, or unless they're trying to like fire sale these things. I don't know. But this to me is like, it's really, I honestly, this is really I saw the trending topic, Carta, and like leaked information or something, but I didn't dig into it at all. But these are like the competing incentives are so difficult here, where you want to go to the market and raise money and give ownership away, but you also want to have control over that ownership on secondary, where there's ways around like the vesting period and transfer this and legalese for this doing that, and that, like, because you can align incentives without. Well, I don't know actually. It's a really hard problem to solve, and I wonder if a lot of inefficiency exists, or like quote unquote inefficiency exists to prevent from this kind of stuff happening. Like you as the customer here are not the beneficiary of this technology necessarily, unless it's like it's kind of like, I haven't got this analogy fully worked out in my head, but the Amazon basics thing, where you build a marketplace, you let people put loads of energy and effort into making something that people want, and then you basically
undercut them.
come in and undercut them, or you like maneuver around them for your own benefit.
Yeah.
And it's free markets and blah, blah, but that's not really how you're presenting yourself to the world. But unfortunately, that's a lot of how this stuff works. Like the reason you've been able to build this advantage, because you're doing this shit in silent. Because if you
let me give you the resolution.
Because on the front page of your website, nobody's going to use your software in the first place, right? Go on.
Well, let me just give you a resolution. I love that you brought the Amazon example, but it's the same thing. So Amazon basically shuttered most of their white label stuff because of the PR/antitrust hit they were taking. And it was contributing nothing to their bottom line. So here is the problem with Carta. I'm going to give you the numbers and we can wrap it up after this, because I know we're doing double record, people. Is Carta's making $250 million from their cap table management. They're doing $100 million on fund administration. They're making $3 million on the secondary sales. So they're just like, we're burning our entire reputation.
Stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, as they say.
Exactly. Exactly. So Henry Ward, the CEO of Carta,
that in the chamber there, like that.
had it yesterday. Last night he put out a Medium article and said we're shutting down the secondary business. But here's the whole point: his communication around this very sketchy. People are not satisfied with it. He was blaming a quote. How funny is it? Every company, when there's a scandal, quote unquote, rogue employee. It sounded like
give us a neck to chop.
Yeah,
right?
Phone was hacked.
A phone was hacked. It was like
we need a name.
Anyways, man, let's wrap it up with that. I think that was a good convo.
Great way to round out the week. And so everyone knows we've got a banger AMA / or the AMA questions we didn't get to last week. We're going to cover them in the next episode, so make sure you're here for that. Some really fun ones in there. Appreciate you guys for being there. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers.